Number 8. Sean Lucas. On October the 3rd of 2020, Texas police officer Sean Lucas gunned down 31-year-old Jonathan Price, an African-American man, during a disturbance call to his home in Wolf City. Upon his arrival at the scene, 22-year-old Lucas encountered an allegedly intoxicated Price, who approached him with his arm extended in front of him. The officer later indicated that he'd felt threatened by the homeowner's disposition and thus attempted to restrain him before pulling out his taser. When Price began walking away, Lucas tried to activate the taser, but it failed to deploy. Price then grabbed the end of the weapon, as was captured by the policeman's body cam. Lucas proceeded to fatally shoot the resident 4 times. Price, who'd consequently been rendered unconscious, was rushed to the Hunt Regional Medical Center in nearby Greenville. All attempts to revive him proved unsuccessful. Lucas was immediately terminated from the police department and charged with murder in connection to the incident. His trial was delayed due to COVID-related issues, and Judge Kelly Aiken scheduled the first hearing for May the 19th of 2022. As of latest updates, it's unclear what stage the case's legal proceedings had reached. Number 7. Jason McIntosh. Ex-Alabama law enforcement officer Jason McIntosh beat and murdered his estranged wife, Megan Montgomery, in December of 2019. The man had reportedly resigned from the police force following a previous incident in which he'd shot Montgomery in the arm while they struggled over his gun. In the aftermath, McIntosh blamed his wife for the violent altercation, after which the woman obtained a restraining order against him. Shortly thereafter, Montgomery took further steps to distance herself from McIntosh by filing for divorce, to which the latter responded with vengeful anger. The disgraced police officer followed the 31-year-old woman to a bar and frog-marched her out to the parking lot. After being dragged into his car, Montgomery was driven to a secluded spot where McIntosh beat her before shooting her in the head, inflicting immediate mortal wounds. During the ensuing homicide investigation, detectives quickly zeroed in on the victim's husband as a suspect, given the couple's violent history, as well as the testimony of witnesses who'd been at the bar with Montgomery on the night of the murder. On March the 30th of 2021, McIntosh accepted a deal with the prosecutor to avoid facing the death penalty. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was consequently sentenced to 30 years in prison. Number 6. Courtney Brown and Christy Wilson. Georgia police officers Courtney Brown and Christy Wilson were fired after displaying inappropriate behavior during a routine traffic stop on April the 7th of 2019. According to subsequent reports, Sarah Webb had been stopped by the officers, who were partners, for allegedly speeding. As was recorded by Brown and Wilson's police body cameras, the women openly discussed the fact that they had neither tickets left to issue nor the appropriate device to calculate how fast Webb had been traveling prior to the stop. The officers then seemed to play some sort of twisted game in which they used a coin toss phone app to determine if they'd simply release Webb with the citation or take her into custody, despite not having any evidence that she'd committed a violation. The result of the subsequent coin flip indicated that Webb should be allowed to leave. However, Brown and Wilson decided to apprehend her on charges of speeding and reckless driving anyway. After reporters uncovered the officers' damning body cam video, an internal investigation concluded that Wilson and Brown had failed to perform their duties appropriately on several other previous occasions. Police Chief Rusty Grant signed their termination letter stating their behavior affected the efficiency of the department and destroyed public respect for the force. All charges against Webb were dropped on July the 9th of 2019. Number 5. Rachel Sorkow. Las Vegas police officer Rachel Sorkow was arrested on 5 charges of felony misconduct and indecent exposure on December the 4th of 2018. The 29-year-old had allegedly used state-issued equipment to film and ridicule unsuspecting citizens. During her scornful recordings, Sorkow could be heard using pejorative terms, including racial slurs, to mock her innocent targets. In one such clip, she reportedly taunted an overweight woman and in another made fun of a mentally ill man while encouraging him to twerk. The most serious allegation against Sorkow involved her filming a suspect's genitals without his knowledge or consent. The investigation into her various wrongdoings was launched in September of 2018 after accusations surfaced that she'd shared classified information with friends and family. During Sorkow's eventual arrest, the hateful body cam recordings were found in her possession, and it was also discovered that she'd gone so far as to distribute them among her contacts. The shamed officer was relieved of duty pending the result of her criminal trial. Number 4. Michael Oxford. On August the 18th of 2020, Georgia police officer Michael Oxford was recorded violently arresting a young woman after responding to reports of an alleged assault. 22-year-old Kindesia Smith was among the group accused of having thrown a bottle at a neighbor's car and threatening their daughter. However, when questioned, Smith claimed to have only been sitting on her mother's porch with a few friends. Upon arriving at the scene, Oxford first tried to discuss the incident civilly with Smith, but the group she was with became rowdy, demanding that the officer leave them alone. Smith contended that they'd been on private property and hadn't participated in any illegal activities. Undeterred, the officer informed the young woman that she was under arrest and attempted to handcuff her. When Smith resisted, she was tasered, as onlookers recorded the altercation. Following her arrest, she was charged with felony obstruction and simple battery against a police officer. The video of the incident was uploaded to TikTok, gathering more than 19 million views within a few days. The police department subsequently released a statement assuring the public that a thorough investigation was being conducted. Although Oxford claimed to have warned Smith that he'd use force if she continued to resist, his behavior during the arrest was ultimately deemed unacceptable. A couple of days after the incident occurred, he was consequently fired for violating department policy. Number 3. John Horbert. John Horbert, a police officer from Aurora, Colorado, was forced to resign in disgrace after body cam footage revealed that he'd used unnecessary force during an arrest. The incident in question took place on July the 23rd of 2021, a week before Horbert ultimately quit his post. The 39-year-old officer had responded to a report of trespassing in progress, but found no one at the address provided during the 911 call. While interviewing 3 men standing on the sidewalk outside, Horbert stumbled upon the fact that each of them had warrants out for their arrests. 29-year-old Kyle Vinson was the only suspect who didn't attempt to flee, and he seemed wholly unaware that he was wanted by the police, as his own warrant had been issued recently. The recording recovered from the body cam showed the police officer repeatedly pistol whipping, choking, and threatening to shoot the suspect. Vinson could be heard gasping for air during the video, and at several points screamed, "You are killing me!" with a chilling disregard for the man's well-being. Horbert replied that he'd shoot him if he attempted to move. After detectives reviewed the video, the officer was charged with first-degree and second-degree assault, as well as felony menacing, official oppression, and official misconduct. It was reported that the disgraced officer's former partner, Francine Martinez, who had also been present at the scene but didn't actively participate in the assault, could face criminal prosecution for failing to intervene or report the incident. Today's topic was requested by Nicole Wilson, TVF TV, Nicholas Havens, and Mr. Faceless. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Mark Eric Eicher. Pennsylvania policeman Mark Eicher was working part-time for 3 separate law enforcement agencies when he suddenly became engulfed in controversy related to abuse allegations. His accusers, identified only by the initials SR and RB, were 22 and 32 respectively when they were reportedly pulled over by Eicher on separate occasions during early December of 2018. In both instances, the victims testified that the 29-year-old officer falsely accused them of traffic violations before planting incriminating evidence while searching their cars. Threatening the women with incarceration, Eicher would ask the women, "How can you help me help you?" He then allegedly suggested to trade their release for non-consensual intimate favors. When his perverted misdeeds were brought to light a few weeks later, Iker was arrested and the authorities requested that any other potential victims contact the detectives in charge of the case with their testimonies. Another woman was interviewed and she reportedly accused the officer of handcuffing and fondling her in the back of his cruiser in Lackawanna County back in June of the same year. The unnamed victim indicated that she'd decided not to come forward earlier because she'd been afraid that the police wouldn't believe her. Due to the severity of the charges, Iker's bail was set at $1 million, an exorbitant amount that shocked the defendant's lawyer, who unsuccessfully attempted to appeal the decision. On July the 24th of 2021, Iker pleaded guilty to his crimes, reducing his resulting prison sentence from 20 to 13 years. Judge Malachi E. Manion rejected the original terms of the deal, however, and instead convicted the man to 15 years behind bars. Number 1. Molly Edwards and Richard Patton. An official investigation was launched into the conduct of Sergeant Molly Edwards and Constable Richard Patton after accusations of inappropriate behavior reached officials at the police department in Surrey, England. Edwards and Patton, both of whom were married with children at the time, had allegedly been involved in a romantic affair since July of 2019 and would often fail to respond to radio calls while on duty together. On the night of September the 29th, the officers received 2 call-outs, one in relation to a burglary at a nearby shop and a second to a serious assault at a hospital merely 15 minutes away from where their squad car was parked. Instead of responding to the scenes of the crimes in progress, however, Patton reportedly said, "Let's just get naked," as was recorded by audio surveillance devices that had secretly been planted in their vehicle. Transcripts of the ensuing conversation included references to intimate fantasies, as well as a collection of lewd noises made by the clandestine law enforcement lovers. When confronted with the evidence, both officers resigned from the force to avoid facing a disciplinary board hearing, but they reportedly escaped any criminal charges in connection to their negligent behavior. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get stopped by a blackmailing police officer or lose your phone in the ocean? Let us know in the comments section below.